Just make sure to stick with the case.
Yeah, down one. You want it to be level. No, I mean not down that. I'm saying no, I would go up more. Because you want it to be like at our this level, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so that makes sense because like where my arm is actually one of the kind of where your camera is. So I think that's good. How's it staying?
Yeah.
You sure it's not gonna just fall off the wall?
If it does,
Hey, what do you think
I'll fix it in post.
So
Okay, actually not bad.
That's what I do when I just turn it on.
Yeah. Ah, that's okay. Okay. You could slide in those way.
Pop it off.
Slide in there.
Yeah, okay, got it. Alright.
Okay.
You ready? How do you everything to turn it on? Or is that already
I think
recording?
it's already on.
Oh, it's already on. It's been on for like 1:54.
Yeah.
Great. Sounds good.
Okay, welcome to the Clear Minds Pantry podcast. I'm here with my guest, Rob. Rob, we knew each other for a little over a year, and yeah, let's get into it. I got a couple questions I wrote down, and
All right.
yeah,
All right, let's do it.
let's do it. All right, so the goal is to provide a comprehensive look to a person's journey through sobriety, offering insights into the challenges, triumphs, and ongoing personal growth.
Okay.
All right, first questions would be about general sobriety journey, and can you share what led you to make the decisions to get sober?
Oh gosh. Okay. He started with a big question. So I think that the one is I don't know that there was a decision at first, right? Like I think like for a lot of us, the issue comes down to did it become painful enough to make a change, right? I think that mine, I was not a one chip wonder. I wasn't a person that was able to like make this decision quickly. This was a course of over years of basically thinking that everything was fine, thinking that everything was going to be okay, thinking that it was everybody else and everything else around me, and then realizing over time that really the problem was something I needed to fix inside of myself. So I think that mostly what happened was I wasn't convinced I was an addict. I wasn't convinced I was an alcoholic. And then later down the road, it became something more like, wow, this is jails are a real thing for me. Like I'm getting arrested all the time. I'm constantly homeless. I'm constantly broke. I'm constantly losing the jobs that I get that I love. And then I think over time it just became like, okay, I definitely have something going on. But for me, I was under the influence so much that I really didn't even have the ability to make decisions. It wasn't until, for me, my detoxes were usually jail. So I went to jail. I would get some clean time in there just by sheer fact that I couldn't go anywhere. And then after that, I'd start making clear decisions. So, for me, that worked. I was able to kind of like get some time in so that my brain would start working again and I could actually make some form of decision. I really feel like I couldn't make decisions before then. And then what I would do is I would try to make some better choices before I got out. So I actually agreed to go to like a program immediately, door to door from jail, right into a rehab. That helped a lot. It didn't get me all the way to my journey, but it started the process. And I think one of the hardest things to do is just even having any form of acknowledgement of something's wrong, and then being able to take that acknowledgement and put in some form of action to be able to get to a place where I can make better decisions.
Can you share what led you? Okay, you kind of answered that. So, how long have you been sober, and what was the turning point for you?
Oh, okay, yeah. So for me, it's been about 3 years and 2 months. Surprisingly, never planned to be sober for this long. Never thought I could be sober this long. For me, 6 months, 9 months was like the breaking point for me. Every time I got to 6 or 9 months, I would be really antsy. Um, it would just never would never work out. It's like I couldn't hold it together. And I think um, the biggest change for that was just um, actually having a program, right? Like going through the steps. For me, the 12 step programs work for me. So just going through the steps, trying to figure out like how to actually do this thing fully, and giving myself into this program, you know. And so for me, the 12 step program was the best way to go. As far as the turning point, I think it really just came down to the misery. You know, at the end of the day, I remember the last time I was using, I was in a crappy hotel. I was just miserable, and nothing was fun about it anymore. Like there was nothing fun, there was nothing on the horizon. This wasn't any worse of a day than any other day. So I'm not going to say like this day was particularly terrible, but it just was getting old, you know? And I think it just got to the point where I was like, you know, I acknowledged that I couldn't do this. Like I couldn't do this. I couldn't do this on my own. I reached out to my family, and I had to um, basically. For me, a geographic change worked, so I made a geographic change, moved to South Florida, and that was helpful. And so it wasn't one thing. I think it was just the culmination of things that finally was just like the straw that broke the camel's back. I think is kind of how it happened for me.
For anybody out there who's looking to maybe start this journey, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced when you first started your journey towards sobriety?
Well, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I think it's probably worth not just repeating, but kind of going into, right? It's like the whole process of even acknowledging that anything was wrong. For me, I'm a rational thinker. I like to think that I am. I would try to think my way out of everything. So everything was like a just way to like, like if I game plan this the right way, if I can think through this the right way, if I can come up with the right plan, if I can drink more responsibly, if I can use more responsibly, efficiently, cheaper, better. Somehow I always thought that I could do all of those things. And what I realized is um, that I just couldn't do those things. And, you know, they say this, there's a saying, and I personally hate AA sayings, or I used to hate them, but now I love them because of the truth that's in them, right? There's always a grain of truth in every saying. And this saying was, you know, basically talking about how AA or 12 step programs will ruin your drinking and using. It did that for me because I saw that there was actually the possibility to change. And I think that that made a huge difference.
Do you have a specific moment or realization that made you want to live a sober life? Or, like we just said, was a combination of all the things put together?
Hmm. I don't think there's a realization per se. I think what was different this time, right, and getting the time that I've had together and things like that was understanding that my life could be different. It was seeing that it was getting better, which didn't happen quickly. You know, it was one of those things that just took time. And but the more I was sober, the longer I was sober, the more I formed a community within the sober, you know, within the sober environment that I was in. I made friends that were sober. We did sober things. We went to the beach together. We would go to Top Golf. We would go mini golfing. We would go, you know, just do all these things. And I really had to relearn how to be a person, right? Because I was never, I was a person when I was using, but barely, and I didn't know that my life could be different. I really didn't see that there was that kind of opportunity. Um, and so through the process of that opportunity of saying, okay, I can see a life in this. I can see my life getting better. I can see it changing. I can see how my relationships are um, more trusting, more genuine. You know, making friends that were more genuine made a huge difference. One of my biggest complaints, I think, and maybe some other people can relate to this, is I was an isolator. So I always felt alone. But even if I was around people, I always felt alone. Um, and this allowed me to figure out that there was a community that I didn't have to be alone. And then through figuring out that there was a community that I didn't have to be alone, I figured out that in my everyday life, I could live and be successful and hold it together, and not just hold it together after some time, appreciate the quiet, the serenity of my day instead of the chaos that was my everyday. And I, you know, there are moments in my life I think where sometimes I think I miss the chaos, until it starts to get a little bit chaotic. And then I realized how much I really love my serenity and how much that's changed. And so it's more that part for me, the ability to have a serene life where I'm building something. I'm proud of the person I've become and the person I'm becoming. Because this is a journey. This isn't just I do the steps and I do this thing and all of a sudden everything is fixed, right? I will forever be an addict and alcoholic. Um, I just have to continue to, they say take your medicine, right? Like I say, I continue to go to meetings. I continue to meet with my community, my tribe of people that I relate to. I continue to form those relationships, and I continue to try to live these practices, these things in my day to day life.
And how did you feel in the early days of sobriety, and how did those feelings evolve over time to
Oh,
where you're at now?
early sobriety. I think that early sobriety was just holding on. I felt like every day was holding on. It was like I was trying so hard to like keep it together. I didn't know if I was an addict. I didn't know if I was an alcoholic. I did know that my life was a mess. It was a mess. Um, Fearful. I feel like my life was just full of fear. Every day was not knowing, right? I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know who was going to knock on my door. If I had a door, I didn't know if I was going to be walking down the street for hours trying to find to use or whatever. It's like it just was so uneasy. It was just fear. It was all fear. And then when I was trying to get sober, it was all fear of like, can I keep it together? Am I going to disappoint everybody again? I'm going to disappoint myself again. Um, and I did. I did disappoint myself. I did disappoint other people in my life at first, but it took time. For me, it took a long time. My recovery journey was over years, not months. I wish I could say that was different, but it's definitely been over years before I could even get some time together and acknowledge these things. But after that, like I said, it's more hopeful. It's just really full of like what's going to happen next, not being fearful of what will happen next or what might happen next. I think that's changed a lot. Yeah.
Now we'll discuss some support and coping mechanisms that you helped that. What role did support systems, family, friends, support groups play in your journey to sobriety?
I think that they were everything. You know, I'm lucky in the sense that I had a family member who was willing to help me. For what reason, I have no idea. The truth is that I burnt that bridge so many times that I should not have had their support. How it happened to work out, how they were willing to not give up on me, um, it's amazing. So I think that was the start. I think the other thing I had to do, kind of in this whole process, was find outside resources. Right, like I couldn't just have my family because they couldn't really help me. They could provide me support, but they really couldn't help me. I needed to find resources. Like I wound up going to an inpatient program. Then I wound up going from inpatient into a longer term program. I went to like a 3-quarter program. I've been in halfways multiple times because I really needed the structure. And then ultimately, what I needed was all of those things combined with a strong sponsor through the 12 steps, a really great home group that I loved, that I've built a community. And I think all of those things together, kind of like in those resources, is what was able to help me to be successful.
How important have therapy, support groups, counseling been in your recovery? I know you mentioned, finding a home group and finding that support group. How would you say, how important is that for somebody looking to achieve sobriety?
So I will say two parts to this. One is that I did not go through a lot of, I was in a 30-day inpatient, and then I did some others like supplemental programs. I didn't really have the opportunity because I didn't have health insurance and other resources to be able to afford to do more. I would say from my perspective now, I work with people with mental health issues and substance abuse issues. And now I see how much value there is in them. And I really wish that I had had those resources. I think it would have helped me get to my goal faster. And I think ultimately, um, being introspective, taking the time to look at ourselves, what our motivators are, what our fears are, what's going on in our lives, truly getting a genuine look at who we are, what we may have become, and where we want to go, right? Like I think that that's where counseling helps, therapists help, and potentially for some people medication. as well, right? Like if you have a mental health diagnosis, I think it's so important to have a good mental health care plan, have a psychiatrist, have a therapist. Those are things that I think people want to, in some cases, pretend like aren't happening. And a lot of times people are really self-medicating, right? We're really trying to just fix this internal angst or problem or thing with not the right resources. And a lot of times those right resources are going to be a therapist, in some cases a psychiatrist, and in some cases medication if it's needed. But I think that whole support group has to be there for it all to really work. So I definitely see the value in it. I wish I had more resources, because when I see the people that I work with now that have those resources, it's clear that there's a faster process to getting to being happy and a productive, happy and productive person.
Okay. Do you still deal with cravings? And if you do, how would you cope with cravings and temptations as they arise?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think that. Well, I would say cravings. I would say I don't have cravings in the same way that I did. Right. Like I used to have. I used to. It'd be incessant. Right. It's the only thing I thought about. Um, I would want it. I would obsess about it. Um, I don't really have that anymore. I'll be honest. I don't have that so much. What I may have nowadays is I'll have like a random musing dream. I'll have a fleeting thought. And my fleeting thought will be like, oh, I remember when that was fun, and or I'll remember like this one time this happened, or oh, wouldn't that be fun to do this, right? And I might have those, but for me they're very fleeting. The thing that I look at them as is I look at them as just thoughts, right? Because I have thoughts. We're gonna have thoughts. I think all of us have thoughts in our lives they're just like a million of them, right? Like we probably have a billion thoughts a day. I don't know if that's a real number, but you know what I'm saying. It's like we can think about lots of stuff. Um, but I don't think that those things define us. I think what defines us is how we choose to react, or to react or respond to those thoughts, right? Like I can react to it by saying that's what I want to do, or I can respond to it by thinking through it and saying, where will this take me? Is this an actual good plan? I often go back to the last time that I used, and I really think about what that was like. Was it fun? When I romanticize it in my head, it all sounds fun. When I really look at the facts of what happened, none of it is fun. And so I think it's just the difference between acknowledging how we view it, right? Changing the lens that we look at it and say, okay, the lens that I'm going to look at it is I want to respond to it, not react. I'm not going to just have this like gut feeling about, oh, yeah, this was the way that it was. I really try to look at real information and saying, okay, how did it actually happen? How did it really go down? And how do I think it'll go down again? Because the truth is like, I'm a lot better at predicting outcome now in my life, right? Because I'm clear headed. I'm able to say, if I do this action publicly, it will or won't go well. And I'm able to do that now. And so I think that, the biggest changes in any of this is just figuring out how we either react or respond. Hopefully we respond. Hopefully we don't just react. Hopefully we don't let the emotion of it or the romanticization of it, I don't know if that's a word, of it become a thing. Hopefully it's more that I'm able to really think through it. And I'm able to now. Like I have enough time, I have enough clarity. Um, I've had enough wrong choices. Right? I've definitely made the wrong choice, and that's okay. But now I'm able to make more right choices, which is helpful.
Over the time and through your sobriety, what are some tools or strategies you use to maintain your sobriety on a day-to-day basis?
Mm.
Maybe meditation or exercise.
So I wish I could say that it's exercise and meditation. Here lately, I would say that it's community. Yeah. So one of the things I tried to do is make sure that I go to meetings, but in addition to that, because I think that's just like a fundamental step, like that's a fundamental process that we need to do, is stay connected to that the 12-step community. But in addition to that, I have friends that are in recovery. Talking to them, and really, it's just about everyday stuff too. It's like not all recovery conversation. Some of it is just like what's going on with my partner, or their partner. How are they doing? How do they get through their day? What are some of the challenges? Right? It's like really nice to have a sounding board no matter what. Reaching out to your sponsor is helpful. If you have sponsees, I think that's also helpful. Those are things that are helpful. I would say though that if there was an area that I wanted to work on, it would be my meditation time, more so than my prayer time. My prayer time is pretty solid, but my meditation time has been lacking here lately. And I saw so much good result from that I can see that there's a huge advantage to it. I'm actually going to a meditation meeting tonight, which is really funny that you even brought it up because I haven't been in this meditation meeting in a while, and so maybe that's a good sign, right? Like something I need to work on. But yeah, I'm going to be checking that out tonight because I know that that's something that is a game changer or can be a game changer in my recovery.
Awesome. So now we'll discuss a little bit, just about impact on life. How has your life changed since becoming sober? What are some of the most positive transformations that you've experienced?
Hmm. I was um, I was having a conversation with a friend actually yesterday, and we were catching up, and we hadn't caught up in a while. And the first thing I thought, they were asking like, "How are you doing? Like, what's going on now?" And I thought to myself, "Oh my gosh, my life has completely changed." People talk about the promises of recovery, things of that nature, and and uh, and so those are the things that we you know, hold on, I'm going to start over. So people talk about the promises, things of that nature, and when we talk about that, um, it's something that people talk about, and you go, "Oh, that's great someday," right? I think it's a very someday conversation. It's like you look at it and go, "Maybe I'll not be broke all the time, right? Maybe I'll keep a job. Maybe I'll whatever." But I think what it doesn't look at is like the things that really like really happen and change, right? Like so, like my work has changed drastically. I've changed from I was working a like a crappy front desk job somewhere, and now I'm the director of operations for a couple of organizations. Not planned, right? Changing, which is a financial change. I mean, but I think the bigger changes, the more important changes, are my relationships with other people. I keep my friendships. I have friends. I have real friends. I have real friends that I love to spend time with. I connect to my family. Just hung out with my brother and his wife all day yesterday, like, and loved it. Had a great time. Not something I would have done before. I would have just avoided them completely. Things like being in a relationship. I'm in a relationship, a really great one, and I didn't think I would ever have it or deserve it. You know, um, but I think the biggest thing when I like to think about my recovery and the gifts of recovery, if you will, the biggest change isn't even all of those things, which are great. I mean, don't get me wrong; it's nice to have the job that I have. It's nice to be in the relationship I'm in. But what's nicer is when I lay my head down at night, instead of all of the racing thoughts that I have that I worry about, all the worries, all the stresses that I used to have, all the unknowns, all the fears, um, I like go right to bed. Like I go right to bed. I have a lot of tranquility in my life. I have a lot of serenity in my life, and I think that's the biggest gift I've got out of all of this is just how I feel is completely different, and I just didn't even know what that would feel like because I hadn't experienced it ever. I don't think serenity. People talk about it. People talk about you're gonna find serenity, and I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what it would be, and now I know it's like this inner calm, this inner peace, this like comfort um, that I'm able to have with me every day that I just didn't think was possible.
Yeah, so you definitely mentioned, the improved health, relationships, career opportunities. And my next question was actually, have you noticed any unexpected benefits of sobriety? Which you just mentioned, the serenity,
Yeah,
you know?
that one was a weird one, right? Because I think that people talk about it a little bit, but I don't think any of us. Well, I won't say any of us, but I would say lots of us don't know what it is. And my using and drinking serenity was not a thing.
Right.
It just wasn't a thing. It was like it's a completely foreign concept. Even if I had experienced, I wouldn't have known what it was because it was so fleeting, right? Like I don't know if I ever really experienced it, but I would say I couldn't recognize it because it's like my life. The second I might have had it, even if I had it for a moment, I would just mess it up, and life would be chaotic. So I think yeah, that's probably something.
So how has sobriety affected your relationships with your family and friends?
And I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I think the biggest changes are, and I'll talk about it a different way. So with my family, one of the things I look at is, and I call this my living amends. So I see my family relationships as living amends. I see them as like I put effort into them, right? Like I put effort into calling my parents. I put effort into um, spending time with my brother, his wife. Like I put effort into those things, even when they're not convenient. Sometimes it's like I know though that like putting that effort in it matters. And I'm not telling you that every relationship has changed drastically. And frankly, my relationship with my parents hasn't changed that much. We were not particularly close. We're not super close now, But I do know that they have peace of mind at night. I provide them that because they know that like I'm in a safe environment and I'm not hurting myself or other people. I think with my brother and his wife, we're close. We actually enjoy spending time together, and that's novel. The fact that they were able to forgive me for the things that I've done, and for the fact that I'm able to forgive myself and move on, and rebuild these relationships. And then in friends in general, I really feel like I'm capable to be a friend. I would complain when I was using that I didn't have any friends, but I certainly didn't know how to be one. And I think that that's changed a lot. It's like I really try to be a good friend, to listen more than I talk, hopefully, right? To be available when somebody needs my help. And those things matter. And I think that, and what I find is that because of that, there's this reciprocity, which is my friends tend to be there for me. They tend to listen. They tend to do those things, and those are drastic changes.
So now we'll get the perspective on sobriety and addiction. How do you define addiction, and how do you think it's misunderstood by others?
How do I define addiction? I mean, I think plenty of people can define it better than me, right? I think that there's lots of books and lots of ways, and the big book and everything else will tell you like what addiction, being an alcoholic, being a drug addict. I would say that it's when for me it was when a substance took over everything. The things that were important to me were no longer important. The things and the goals that I had for my life no longer mattered, and they couldn't matter. That's the weird part. It's not even like I was consciously choosing to not have them matter. In my head, I think I thought they were still there, but in reality, they weren't. It just was it was an encompassing, completely like void, is what it became. It became the void of everything went into my addiction. Every single dollar that I had, every single friendship that I had took back burner over me wanting to use. And those are things that are different. And I think really addiction is when the void takes over and everything else doesn't matter. And that definitely happened for me.
What advice would you give someone who is struggling with addiction or thinking about getting sober?
I would say that start somewhere,
Start
right?
somewhere.
You got to start somewhere, and that somewhere can be, for me it was jail. I mean, honestly, for me it was jail. It wasn't like I was smart enough to make a phone call and say, let me go find resources. Like I couldn't. So I wasn't that great. But what I did after I got there was I was able to find resources and make a game plan for myself when I was capable to make any choices, because I really couldn't before then. But I think it's like just make a phone call you don't want to make. Do something that you don't think you want to do, because that one thing that you think you don't want to do could be everything, could change everything.
In your opinion, what are some common myths or misconceptions about sobriety and addiction?
Sobriety and addiction, two drastically different questions. I think that some people view addiction as a choice. They view it as a thing that I'm choosing to do. I'm going to choose to not have anything valuable in my life. I'm going to choose to burn every bridge because that's what I want. I'm going to choose to give up on every dream that I ever had because somehow I think this other thing is more important. I think there's a really big misconception of the idea that there's any choice at all. You know, I'd like to think that I made choices, right? I'm a rational human being. I make choices, and even in my addiction, I thought I was making choices. But the truth was is that I wasn't. The truth is that I was making no choices. That I was just doing what my addiction was having me do, right? Like I no longer had the comfort, the ability, the wherewithal to make choices. All the choices I made were based around how to use more, how to find, how to get it, how to, whatever, how to find the resources to get it, whatever it was. Those became my focus, and I just really don't think I was capable to break that chain. It wasn't until something disrupted the chain of events that I was able to make a change. So for me, it was jail often. I'm hoping that for some other people, it's choosing to make a phone call, to maybe get into a program, go to rehab, do something. Maybe it's as simple as going to a meeting with somebody that you trust, or finding a meeting online that you probably need, but you're not sure how to get started. Whatever that thing is that helps you get started to this journey is the step. And for everybody, it's different. So I just hope that whatever that step is for a person that might be listening, I hope that you take that step, whatever it is for you.
What is the most important thing someone should know about the recovery process?
Most important thing, I would say that it's a process,
Mhm.
right? That it ebbs and flows, it's up and down, right? Like it is a process and it takes time. Um, a saying that people use often in the rooms is, "I wish it was slow recovery." Sounds like the most rude thing you can ever say to somebody until you realize what they're really saying is that I hope that it sticks. I hope that it's long lasting. I hope that you have a long recovery, meaning I hope that your life just gets better. Um, and those are things that you don't realize at first because I'm an impatient person. I feel like if I've made the decision to make a change, it should all come to me now. If I've made the decision to, not do this, then everything should be fixed now. I believe that everything is, this moment, this second. I want this, and then the second that everything doesn't change, I think that I've failed somehow. But now I know that I haven't. It's just a process. It really is a process that takes time, that over time changes. And they're sometimes they're so small that they're incremental that you don't necessarily feel them yet until you really think about it. And sometimes they can be bigger steps, right? Like you may finish a step in your step work that gets you from here to here, but then it may take longer after those steps to feel like anything changes. Then it may, again, you may have some leaps in it, but some of it could be really slow.
So yeah, now we're going to discuss some long-term sobriety and what motivates you to stay sober, especially during tough times.
Hmm. I think the biggest thing that I think about whenever I think about my sobriety now is, would I want to trade what I have for what I had? That's the biggest thing for me. Do I like what I have, right? I know what I have right now. What I have right now is a life that I'm proud of, where I help other people. I give to my community. I'm able to support people in the type of work that I have. I have a relationship where I feel cared for. I have a family that I know loves me and that I love. Um, do I want to trade that for what I know I had before? And I mean, in that way, it's really easy, right? Like it's like I've had enough time sober now that I'm able to make that rational choice. I think the harder part is at first would I have been able to make that choice, and I can't say that I would have made it on my own. I would say the biggest thing would be the community that you build to make sure you can make better choices. Because sometimes I can't make a choice for myself. In the early sobriety, I couldn't make a choice for myself. I needed other people to tell me, like, hey, that's probably a bad decision. And I trusted them, so I believed them. So I think it's surrounding us with certain people helps us too.
You mentioned this a little bit before, about in the journey and in different periods. And how do you celebrate milestones in your sobriety journey?
How do I celebrate milestones? That's interesting because I do still celebrate them. Not like I used to, right? Like I remember, but I think it's because things change. So I remember when one day was so much work that it really was like, I think those are the days that I should have celebrated more, to be honest. As I got more time, 30 days was not fun for me. 60 days, it all just felt like work. Like I really had to put work behind it. As I've gotten past year, 2 years, what I find is that it's just changing now. Like my recovery has changed so much. Like it's a matter of like, how do I grow in different ways? Um, but I will tell you what hasn't changed is that it's still one day at a time. And I hope that that never changes for me. I don't ever want to see my recovery as being something that I'm like, oh, I'm at 5 now. I can take my foot off the gas. I'm at 10. I'm definitely in the clear. I just don't think I'll ever be in the clear. So I really try to look at it. I don't know if I celebrate milestones in the sense of like, now I'm at 4, now I'm at 3, it's more like really just knowing that to me, living in today is the thing. I don't look at milestones the same way. I really try to just live in today, get through today, one day at a time, like I did in the beginning. I don't know that it's changed that much.
What goals do you have for your future now that you're sober?
Hmm. Is it bad to say I've reached my goals? You know what I mean? I've reached my goals in the sense of like professionally, I'm content. I enjoy what I do. I feel trusted at work. I feel appreciated at my job. I feel like I give back at my job. Um, that my job allows people to become better people and myself to become a better person. In my relationship, it's still continuing to work and grow in that, but like I'm pretty fortunate. I really, really am. Um, when I look at all of those different metrics in my life, like I'm a really lucky guy. So what do I want for myself next? I think it's just figuring myself out more, right? Like I think that that's where maybe this meditation part will help, or becoming more grounded. I think that there's always room for improvement. I think every day is a journey, and I think that we just continue down that journey. And what exactly it holds, I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not fearful of it. I'm excited about it. I wake up excited, hopeful, um, and that's the only thing I really want. Just continue to be excited and hopeful. I don't want to get bitter in any way or jaded or take things for granted. I hope that that doesn't happen. But other than that, like I said, I'm just going to continue to trek on today.
Good answer. Looking back, what advice would you give your younger self before you began this journey?
That's funny. Only because I could have given tons of advice that I wouldn't listen to. Here's the thing I realize now: is my younger self was not very bright. Probably not real bright now, actually. But you know, I think if there was anything that I would say is that it is possible. I think that the hardest thing to understand was that change was possible and that I could be happy. I really didn't think it was possible. I didn't really think that I could stop using. I just assumed I was going to die in the streets with a needle in my arm. I really believed that. And now I don't believe that. Now I know that it's possible. I can go back today, but I know that it's possible that I don't have to. And it's like, the saying again, right, is you never have to use or drink again, right? People say it, doesn't mean you believe it. I wish I could have convinced myself that it was true. But the thing is every journey is different. And so it doesn't really matter what I would have said to my older self. Probably would have turned out the same way. It's like when you're ready, you know, when you're able, you will. You know, sometimes just doing the best we can is the best we can. And every recovery journey is different. But with mine, I probably would have told myself a lot of things and I would have listened to none of them because I was smarter than everybody, you know? Um, but maybe not. Maybe some bit of wisdom, if you will, would have come through. I don't know.
Awesome. All right, now we're going to get into the final reflection. How do you continue to grow and evolve in your sobriety?
Consistency.
Consistency.
I think consistency is important. I think that still trying to go to my meetings, still trying to keep relationships, still trying to live the principles, right? And we talk about the principles, we talk about the steps, but they're not just about my recovery from drug addiction, from alcohol. It's really about the person I want to become, that I'm still working on. I really think that it's just living these principles in my life every day and trying to grow and become a better person, the better version of myself. I'm not going to be you. I'm not going to be someone else. I don't want your life. I don't want somebody else's life. I want the better version of my life, which is the journey that I'm living. You know,
What roles does gratitude play in your recovery process?
a lot bigger role than it did. Gratitude was a completely foreign concept. I think that gratitude was people being like, "Oh, I'm so glad for, grateful for this, grateful for that." I'm like, "Oh, this is not Thanksgiving. Like, I just don't want to hear it." But now it's a daily. So now it's a daily. So one of the things I do in my reflection time when I go to bed, when I lay my head down, or before I go to sleep, is I think through my day and I think about the things I'm grateful for. And sometimes the things I'm grateful for weren't necessarily the best parts of my day. They were the things that helped me grow the most. They helped me challenge myself to be better. You know, um, being grateful for things that aren't great is harder, right? I think being grateful for things that went well is easy. Um, so I'm trying to grow and being grateful for things that aren't great and things that were tough and things that are challenging and knowing that they're helping me become a better me. So that's where the growth in my gratitude has happened.
And finally, what message would you like to share with others who may be considering a life of sobriety?
I think it's simple, right? It's possible. It is absolutely